The vast station named Unity floated in orbit above a blue and gold planet that neither humans nor the Zelthar called home. It had been built exactly for this moment, the first official meeting between the two species. Every hall shone with clean light. Every surface was polished to a mirror finish, and every sign was written in both human letters and the curved marks of the Zelthar language. Inside the main chamber, a long table stretched from one side of the room to the other. Human engineers had spent months preparing it so that both sides would sit at equal height and comfort. Captain Mira stood near the center of the room, adjusting the small silver device clipped to her collar. It was the latest model of the Translator sphere, designed to translate not just words but also tone and intent. The engineers had called it a masterpiece of technology. Mira hoped they were right. Her uniform was spotless, her boots shined, and her heart beat a little faster than she would admit. She was about to meet the queen of an empire that had ruled 50 worlds. The human delegation waited in quiet anticipation. Beside Mira stood Admiral Harris, tall and stern, his expression unreadable. Behind them were scientists, diplomats, and 2 security officers who looked more nervous than they should. On the far side of the chamber, the door shimmered with blue light. The Zelthar were about to arrive. Mira took a slow breath. She had studied their culture for months. The Zelthar valued strength and grace. Their royalty was known for sharp intellect and sharper temper. A single insult, even by mistake, could end all chance of peace. She repeated her greeting in her mind, carefully forming each word. Then the doors opened. The alien queen entered with her honor guard. She was tall, slender, and covered in fine scales that shifted color like flowing silk. Her eyes glowed faintly gold, calm yet watchful. Behind her moved 6 guards in dark armor, carrying long ceremonial staffs. The air grew heavy, not from fear, but from the sense that every movement carried meaning. Queen Jura of the Zelthar stepped forward, her tail swaying slowly behind her. Her voice carried a gentle rhythm when she spoke to her aide. Though the humans could not yet understand the words, the translator devices would handle that part. When she reached the center of the room, she looked directly at Mira. "You are the one called Captain Mira," she said through her own translator, the words coming out clear and even. "You represent the people of Earth." Mira bowed slightly. "Yes, Your Majesty. It is an honor to meet you on behalf of humanity. May this day mark the beginning of peace between our people." The translator orb on the table glowed softly, repeating her words in the alien tongue. The queen listened, her head tilting just a little. Then she gave a slow nod. The tension in Mira's chest eased slightly. So far, everything was going according to plan. The 2 delegations took their seats at the table. Plates of food were brought in, carefully selected meals that both species could eat safely. Humans had offered fruit, bread, and roasted vegetables. The Zelthar brought shining blue crystals that were said to be full of nutrients. The table was a symbol of unity but also of risk. If either side made a cultural mistake, it could turn a peaceful dinner into an international scandal. The first hour went well. They exchanged stories of their worlds, spoke of trade routes, and compared philosophies about leadership. Mira found the queen fascinating. Shara spoke with wisdom and humor, and she seemed to enjoy the curiosity of humans. She asked about Earth's oceans, its music, and even the idea of pets. Mira answered every question with care, thankful that the translator device kept up perfectly. It was during the toast to friendship that the trouble began. Admiral Harris raised his glass and said, "To peace between Earth and the Zelthar Empire. May our friendship last beyond the stars." Mira smiled and added, "And may we always find light in each other's company." The translator device hummed softly and began to translate, but something strange happened. The words shifted tone halfway through. The small blue light blinked, the sound stuttered, and then the voice that came out was slightly distorted. Mira did not notice at first, but the Zelthar guards froze in their seats. The queen blinked slowly, her golden eyes narrowing. Mira looked around, confused. She could not understand the alien tongue, but she felt the change in the air. The queen's aide leaned close and whispered urgently in her ear. The queen's tail stopped moving. "What did it say?" Mira asked softly. The human technician at the back of the room quickly checked his tablet. His face went pale. "Captain, the device translated your words as, 'May we always find fat light in each other's skin.'" Mira stared at him, horrified. "That doesn't even make sense." "In their culture," the technician whispered, "calling someone's skin fat light means something like overripe glow. It is an insult used for weak leaders. Mira's heart nearly stopped. The hall was silent again. Every Zelthar eye was on her. She stood and bowed deeply. Your Majesty, please forgive this error. It was a malfunction, not an insult. The translator orb sputtered once more and turned her apology into something worse. Instead of saying, it was a malfunction, it translated to, it was the fault of my small brain. The guards shifted in their seats, clearly unsure if this was an attack or a confession. The Queen remained perfectly still, her gaze sharp. Mira wanted to sink through the floor. She turned to the technician who was frantically pressing buttons on the control pad. Shut it off, she hissed under her breath. I'm trying, he whispered, but it's looping. The orb gave a sudden spark of light. It spoke again in a cheerful voice that did not belong to anyone in the room. Human friendship tastes like boiled lettuce. Everyone froze, the guards tensed. The scientists hid behind their data pads. Admiral Harris looked ready to faint. Mira's hands clenched at her sides. She could not tell if the Queen was about to leave or laugh. The silence stretched like a thin wire ready to snap. Then Queen Jara leaned back in her chair. Her expression softened and a faint sound escaped her throat, something between a sigh and a quiet chuckle. The sound grew louder until it became a clear laugh, musical and calm. Boiled lettuce, she repeated almost to herself. That is what your device thinks of me? Mira felt her face grow warm. Your Majesty, I assure you that humans have nothing but respect for you. The translator repeated her words correctly this time, and Jara gave a small nod. I believe you. Machines may fail, but intention does not. I will not let a broken device ruin this meeting. The tension eased slightly, though the humans still looked uneasy. The Queen gestured toward the translator orb. Perhaps your machine is hungry. It seems to crave humor. Mira smiled faintly at the attempt to lighten the mood. Then we will feed it better programming before tomorrow. That made the Queen laugh again. The sound spread through the hall like a warm wind, and even the guards relaxed. Still, Mira could not shake the nervousness in her chest. The first contact meeting between Earth and the Zelthar had nearly ended in disaster because of one small glitch. Yet somehow it had turned into something else, a shared joke, a sign that maybe peace was possible after all. The rest of the evening went more smoothly. The technicians quietly replaced the faulty orb with a backup device, and the conversations continued. The Queen even asked to try some of the human fruit, though she found it far too sweet. When the meeting ended, she stood and bowed her head slightly toward Mira. Captain Mira, she said, your courage under embarrassment is impressive. I look forward to speaking with you again tomorrow. Perhaps your new translator will be more polite. Mira bowed in return, smiling despite her exhaustion. Thank you, Your Majesty. I will make sure it behaves. As the Zelthar delegation left the chamber, Mira let out a long breath she had been holding for what felt like hours. Admiral Harris placed a hand on her shoulder. Well, Captain, that could have gone worse. Mira gave him a tired look. Yes, she could have declared war over boiled lettuce. The Admiral gave a dry laugh. Next time, maybe we let the old translators handle the job. Mira looked down at the repaired silver orb, now quiet and still. No, she said softly. Next time, we just remember that even the best machines can't replace good manners and a bit of laughter. Outside the station's window, the stars shone quietly. The first meeting between humans and the Zelthar had not gone perfectly, but perhaps perfection was never the goal. Sometimes even mistakes could open the door to understanding. And somewhere in the background, the translator device gave one last quiet beep, as if it too wanted to apologize for calling the Queen a vegetable. Mira smiled at the sound. The galaxy, she thought, was going to be a very interesting place. The next morning on the space station, Unity began with quiet tension. The human delegation gathered in the main meeting room long before sunrise. Engineers hurried from one control panel to another, testing the new translator orbs and checking every wire twice. Captain Mira stood near the wide window, looking out at the dark emptiness of space. The stars shimmered, calm and distant, as if they had not witnessed the chaos of yesterday's meeting. Mira could not stop replaying the event in her mind. She had trained for years to speak carefully, to balance diplomacy with respect, and yet, all it took was one glitch from a small silver device to nearly ruin everything. The image of Queen Jara's face when the translator called her boiled lettuce still made Mira wince. She wondered if the Queen had told her people about it. Behind her, Admiral Harris spoke with the engineering team. "I want full diagnostics," he said firmly. "If another translator misfires today, the entire station's reputation will collapse." "Yes, Admiral," one of the engineers replied. "We replaced the old firmware with the latest patch. The new translator sphere is running on dual processors. It should not make any random errors again." Mira turned from the window. "Should not is not good enough. I want to know for certain." The lead technician nodded quickly. "Captain, we also added a live translation monitor. If the device starts to say anything incorrect, you will see the translation appear on the tablet in front of you before it speaks aloud. That will give you a few seconds to stop it." That was some comfort, but Mira still felt uneasy. Technology was never perfect, and the Zelthar were not known for forgiving mistakes twice. When the time came for the second session, the air in the chamber carried a quiet hum of nervous energy. The human delegation lined up in their assigned seats. The alien guards entered first, moving in graceful silence, followed by Queen Jara herself. Her royal robes shimmered in shades of deep violet and blue. Her tail curled slightly as she walked, a motion that seemed both elegant and commanding. Mira rose from her seat and offered a polite bow. "Your Majesty, welcome again. I am honored to continue our discussions." Queen Jara studied her for a moment, then inclined her head. "Captain Mira, I am pleased to see you still brave enough to face me after yesterday's humor." A few soft laughs spread across the room, easing the tension. Mira smiled carefully. "It seems peace has already brought us shared laughter." The translator orb translated perfectly this time. The technicians sighed with relief. The meeting began with trade discussions. The Zelthar offered energy crystals and rare metals, while the humans proposed technology exchanges and agricultural support. Both sides listened politely, though it was clear that centuries of different traditions made agreement slow. The Queen spoke calmly but with authority. She valued honor above all else. Mira took note of every word, trying to find a balance between human practicality and alien pride. Hours passed and the talks grew intense. The Zelthar delegation requested control over certain trade routes near their space, while the humans wanted shared navigation rights. The translator orb continued to perform well, its soft light pulsing as it converted every sentence. Then the Queen asked a question that caught everyone by surprise. "Captain Mira," she said, "tell me what humans value most. Wealth, strength, or wisdom?" The room fell silent. It was a question not of trade, but of identity. Mira thought carefully. "Humans value understanding," she said. "We learn from our mistakes, and that helps us grow." The translator worked, and the alien delegates nodded thoughtfully. The Queen's golden eyes remained on Mira, testing her sincerity. "And what do you learn from embarrassment?" she asked with a faint smile. Mira felt a faint warmth rise to her cheeks. "That even when things go wrong, respect and humor can save peace." Queen Jara smiled slightly. Wise words. For a time everything went smoothly. Then as the conversation turned to cultural exchanges, a small flicker of blue light blinked on the translator orb. The engineers in the back noticed but hesitated, unsure if it was serious. Mira did not see it. She was focused on explaining Earth's custom of greetings, how humans used a handshake as a sign of trust. "It shows that we come with empty hands and honest intentions," she said. The translator repeated her words in the alien language. But then the orb hesitated. A faint crackle filled the air. The next sentence came out distorted. Instead of saying empty hands, the device produced the phrase soft claws. The Queen tilted her head. "Soft claws?" she repeated. Mira blinked. "It should have said empty hands." The technician looked panicked and typed quickly. "It misread a tone pattern, Captain. Fixing it now." Before he could finish, the device tried to correct itself automatically. It repeated Mira's phrase again, this time louder. "Humans show trust with soft claws and honest smell." Gasps echoed around the room. One of the Zelthar guards covered his face, trying not to laugh. The Queen blinked twice, clearly puzzled. Mira stared at the orb as if it had betrayed her soul. Queen Jara leaned forward slightly. "Honest smell?" she asked. "Is that a human compliment?" Mira took a breath, doing her best not to panic. "Your Majesty, the device seems to be confused. It means we trust through action, not through scent." The translator managed to deliver that line correctly. The Queen raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. Among my people, scent does carry meaning. Perhaps your machine is simply trying to adapt." Her tone was calm, but Mira could tell she was amused. She tried to change the subject by presenting a cultural gift. The human delegation had brought a handcrafted globe made of crystal, with both Earth and the Zelthar homeworld engraved upon it. She lifted the small object carefully and placed it on the table. "This," Mira said, "represents our worlds together in unity." The translator repeated her words perfectly at first, but then flickered once more. "This represents our worlds together in soup." Everyone froze again. The Queen blinked. Her guards exchanged puzzled looks. Admiral Harris buried his face in his hands. Mira could feel the blood rushing to her ears. "Soup?" she whispered. The technician typed faster. It must have switched to culinary context. "The Zelthar dictionary uses the same symbol for blend and broth." Queen Jara's eyes glowed faintly brighter. "So you wish our worlds to be blended in soup?" Mira could not help it. A tiny laugh escaped her, nervous but real. "If that is what it takes to share peace, Your Majesty, I hope it tastes good." The translator caught that line correctly, and for a second, silence held the room again. Then slowly the Queen began to laugh. Her voice was smooth and melodic. Her guards joined in, and even the human delegation started smiling. The tension melted away once more. When the laughter faded, the Queen spoke kindly. "Perhaps your translators are comedians in disguise, Captain. I see now that your people bring not only diplomacy but entertainment." Mira bowed slightly, grateful for the Queen's humor. "We do our best to bring joy, not confusion." The rest of the meeting continued without serious problems. Every time the translator glowed strangely, both sides paused, waiting to see if another joke would appear. It became a silent game, a shared moment of suspense that surprisingly drew the two sides closer. By the end of the session, Queen Jara seemed more relaxed. "Captain Mira," she said, "your technology may be unpredictable, but your spirit is steady. I find that admirable." Mira smiled. "Thank you, Your Majesty. It means much to hear that from you." When the Queen and her delegation left the chamber, Mira sank into her chair, exhausted. The technicians began running another round of diagnostics. Admiral Harris approached her, his voice low. "Well, Captain, your translator may be broken, but it's making us famous. I already heard the security staff calling today's talk the Soup Summit." Mira sighed but smiled faintly. "If peace comes with a side of laughter, I can live with that." Later that evening, as she walked through the quiet corridors of the station, Mira thought about how easily things could have gone wrong again. Yet each time humor had softened the tension. The Queen had not punished or mocked her. Instead, she had met embarrassment with understanding. That said something powerful about both their species. She paused by a large window that looked out into the vast dark of space. The stars shone like scattered sparks across the blackness. Somewhere out there, dozens of civilizations lived and struggled to understand one another. Maybe this was how it always began. Not with perfect speeches or flawless machines, but with mistakes, laughter, and a shared effort to keep talking. Behind her, one of the engineers walked up, holding the translator orb. "Captain, we think we've fixed it. We ran simulations and the new patch is holding steady." Mira glanced at the orb. Its small blue light pulsed gently. "Good work," she said. "But keep a backup ready. I have a feeling this little thing enjoys attention." The engineer laughed softly and walked away. As Mira looked once more into the stars, she felt a quiet confidence. Tomorrow's talks would bring new challenges, but she would face them with patience. After all, even the most advanced machines could not understand one simple truth. Sometimes peace began with laughter shared between two very different worlds. The morning of the third day on the space station, Unity began with calm music playing softly in the corridors. The human delegation moved with a mix of hope and worry. The engineers had spent all night working on the translator devices, testing and resetting them over and over again. They had even used simulation programs with thousands of sentences to make sure no strange or embarrassing mistakes would happen again. Captain Mira entered the main conference room earlier than everyone else. The room looked the same as before, but something about it felt different. Maybe it was the quiet hum of the lights or the way the polished table reflected the soft glow from the ceiling. She placed her notes carefully on the table and sat down. Her reflection looked back at her and she smiled slightly, though she still felt tense. She had been replaying the events of the last 2 days in her mind. The translator calling the Queen boiled lettuce, the second day's honest smell comment, and, of course, the Worlds in Soup translation. Each one had nearly caused disaster, but Queen Jara's patience and sense of humor had turned each mistake into something almost friendly. Still, Mira knew they could not risk another problem. Today's meeting was the most important one. They would discuss security and border cooperation between their territories, a topic that could easily cause suspicion or fear. When Admiral Harris entered, his face looked tired but focused. "Captain, I hope your nerves are steadier than mine," he said. Mira smiled faintly. "I've decided to expect chaos. That way I won't be disappointed," he chuckled. That's a healthy mindset for diplomacy. Soon, the rest of the delegation arrived. Engineers checked the equipment again, and the translator orb floated gently above the center of the table, its blue light steady and calm. The technicians had promised that it would not make any more strange translations. Mira hoped they were right. When the Queen entered with her guards, the atmosphere changed instantly. She carried herself with calm confidence, every step measured and elegant. Her golden eyes scanned the room, and when she saw Mira, she gave a small smile. "Captain Mira," Queen Jara said, "I trust your little silver companion has learned better manners today." The translator rendered her words perfectly. Mira smiled. "Yes, Your Majesty. It has been well trained." The room filled with light laughter. The ice was broken early, and everyone seemed to relax a little. The discussion began smoothly. The Queen's advisors presented maps of space lanes near their borders, glowing lines projected in the air. Mira and Admiral Harris studied them carefully. The Zelthar Empire was far larger than human territory, but their resources were spread thin. The humans, on the other hand, had advanced scanners and communication systems that could help patrol dangerous regions. The goal was to find a fair trade, cooperation in exchange for shared technology. For hours, the talks remained calm. Both sides spoke with care and respect. The translator performed well, smoothly carrying words back and forth. Mira began to feel almost confident again. Maybe, she thought, they would finish this day without a single problem. Then, as the Queen began explaining her view on military balance, the translator's light flickered once. It was subtle, almost invisible, but the engineers at the back exchanged worried glances. They checked their data screens and whispered to each other. Mira noticed but decided not to interrupt. She did not want to draw attention if it was only a harmless flicker. Queen Jara spoke for several minutes about her desire to ensure that both sides could patrol their borders safely. Mira listened carefully, then replied, "Your Majesty, we also value peace and stability. We believe that shared patrols can build trust." The translator orb glowed brighter, processing her words. Then it hesitated. The sound it made was slightly off-pitch. Instead of shared patrols, the orb said, "Shared patrol pigs." The room went silent. The human delegation froze. The Queen blinked slowly, her golden eyes narrowing. "Patrol pigs?" she repeated. Mira's heart sank. She turned to the technicians. "What happened?" One of them looked pale. "Captain, it substituted a sound-alike word in its grammar tree. It heard patrols as patrols, which matched pigs in an old dictionary file." Admiral Harris muttered softly, "Why does our translation software even know the word pig?" Mira forced herself to stay calm. She turned to the Queen. "Your Majesty, it was supposed to say shared patrols, not pigs. My apologies." The translator, eager to help, repeated her apology but added, "Humans have great respect for your pigs." The hall filled with a wave of awkward silence again. One of the Zelthar guards made a strange noise, almost like a snort, and tried to hide it by coughing. Another guard's tail shook slightly, a sign of suppressed laughter. The Queen's lips curved upward and Mira's heart stopped again. Queen Jara finally laughed, a full, genuine laugh that filled the room with an echoing melody. "Captain Mira," she said, "your translator is a poet of nonsense. I think I shall keep it as entertainment." The laughter spread through the room. The human delegation joined in, partly in relief and partly in disbelief. Even the engineers laughed quietly at the absurdity of it all. Mira exhaled slowly. She could not believe how close they had come to disaster again, but somehow humor had saved the day once more. When the laughter faded, the Queen leaned forward, her golden eyes bright with amusement. "You humans are strange. You bring a machine that insults me, makes me soup, and now gives me pigs. And yet you still sit proudly as if nothing can defeat you. I find that impressive," Mira smiled. "We learn fast, Your Majesty. And we laugh even faster. The translator for once delivered that line perfectly. After the laughter ended, the talks resumed, and this time they went surprisingly well. The Queen and Mira discussed shared patrol routes, resource stations, and even the exchange of officers for training programs. The tension of the morning had turned into genuine cooperation. It seemed that every time the translator failed, it brought them closer instead of pushing them apart. At the end of the session, Queen Jara stood and walked toward Mira. The room grew quiet. She extended one hand while something similar to a hand, scaled and graceful. Mira hesitated for a moment, then took it gently. "In my culture," Jara said, "a moment of laughter during talks is a sign that the spirits of peace are listening. Perhaps your translator's mistakes are not mistakes after all." Mira nodded with respect. "Then I am grateful for every one of them." The translator spoke her words clearly, and for the first time since the meetings began, everyone seemed completely at ease. After the session ended, the humans returned to their quarters, tired but in good spirits. Admiral Harris shook his head as they walked down the hall. "You realize, Captain, that history will record these meetings as the most ridiculous negotiations ever held." Mira laughed softly. "Maybe that's a good thing. People remember what makes them laugh," he smiled. "Let's just hope tomorrow the translator doesn't start singing." Later, Mira found herself sitting alone in her quarters. The stars outside shimmered quietly. She turned the small translator orb in her hand. Its blue light pulsed gently like a heartbeat. She spoke softly to it. "You caused a lot of trouble, you know that?" The orb responded with a low hum. Then, to her surprise, it spoke in its usual clear voice. Human emotion detected. Confidence rising. Translation stability improving. Mira stared at it. "Are you learning from this?" The orb blinked twice. "Positive reinforcement increases accuracy," she smiled. "Then maybe you're smarter than I thought." The translator glowed brighter for a moment, as if pleased. "Peace is preferable to conflict. Humor increases peace probability by 78%. Mira laughed quietly. "Maybe we should let you handle the negotiations." When the next morning arrived, the translator had not glitched again. The engineers confirmed that its system had adjusted itself. Somehow, through its strange experiences, it had improved. Perhaps the Queen had been right. The mistakes were not just failures, they were lessons in understanding. Queen Jara arrived for the next meeting already smiling. As she took her seat, she looked at Mira and said, "Captain, I dreamed of patrol pigs last night. They were running through the stars, guarding our ships together." The humans burst into laughter again, and even the Queen's guards chuckled. The mood was lighter than ever before. The translator orb hovered silently between them, glowing with calm blue light. This time there were no flickers, no errors, and no confusion. It simply did its job, letting two very different species speak to each other with ease. For the first time, Mira felt that true friendship might actually be possible. Not because of perfect technology or flawless words, but because both sides had learned to laugh together. When the session ended that day, Queen Jara turned to Mira before leaving. "You humans are a curious people. You make mistakes, yet you never give up. You are brave enough to laugh when you should cry. That is why I think peace will last between us." The morning light filtered through the tall windows of the space station Unity, casting long reflections across the polished floor. Captain Mira walked slowly to the main conference room, carrying a folder of notes in her hands. The previous meetings had been difficult but unexpectedly entertaining. The translator device had caused confusion, laughter, and, strangely enough, a growing respect between humans and the Zelthar. Today's meeting promised to be different. Unlike the earlier sessions, today was meant for private discussions. Queen Jara had requested that Captain Mira join her in a smaller chamber. The main delegation would remain outside observing, while the two leaders spoke directly. Mira felt a mixture of nerves and excitement. A private meeting with a queen of a mighty empire was rare in any universe. When she entered the chamber, she found the queen already waiting. Jara's presence was commanding but calm. Her golden eyes focused on Mira, and her tail curled gently behind her. "Captain Mira," she said, her voice soft but clear through the translator. "I hope you are prepared for a serious conversation." "I am, Your Majesty," Mira replied. "I will answer honestly." The queen gestured for Mira to sit across from her at a small round table. The surface was smooth and reflective, showing both of their faces like mirrors. Between them floated a small translator orb, quiet now, its blue light steady. Queen Jara studied Mira carefully. Yesterday your device made interesting choices of words. Boiled lettuce, soft claws, worlds in soup, patrol pigs. I confess I was both amused and confused. Mira smiled faintly. I am deeply sorry, Your Majesty. It was not meant to offend. I only wanted to communicate respectfully. Jara's lips curved slightly. You do not need to apologize to me again, Captain. I understand that machines can be unpredictable. I also understand that humans have courage and humor. That is rare among other species I have met. Mira blinked, surprised. Courage and humor? Yes, the Queen said, leaning back slightly. You face embarrassment and confusion without fear. You maintain respect even when situations are absurd. I admire that quality greatly. It is unusual for any species. Mira felt warmth in her chest. She had spent years learning etiquette, diplomacy, and negotiation, but she had never considered humor to be a diplomatic tool. Somehow the Queen had turned her embarrassment into appreciation. The Queen continued, I will confess something, Captain. When I first saw your translator misinterpret your words, I was unsure if humans were to be taken seriously. But then you laughed. You acknowledged the mistakes. You did not hide or panic. That small moment told me more about your people than months of careful observation. Mira nodded slowly. I suppose I have learned that honesty, humility, and laughter can carry messages more clearly than perfect words. Jara smiled. Wise words, Captain Mira. Perhaps your species has something to teach my people, not just in technology or trade, but in spirit. Mira shifted in her seat. I hope that is true, Your Majesty. We wish to build understanding, not only agreements. The Queen's eyes softened. I believe you. That is why I asked for this private meeting. I want to know the person behind the human face. I want to understand the heart of your species. For a moment they sat in quiet contemplation. The soft hum of the station filled the room, a reminder of the universe outside. Then Queen Jara spoke again. Tell me, Captain, do humans often laugh at their mistakes? Mira smiled. Yes, Your Majesty. We learn that life is full of surprises, and laughing at our errors helps us adapt. It reminds us that perfection is rare, but understanding is possible. The Queen considered this. Among my people, mistakes are dangerous. They are punished or ignored, depending on the severity. Laughter is rarely part of diplomacy. Mira tilted her head. That must make your meetings very serious. Jara's golden eyes glimmered. Indeed, too serious perhaps. But you, Captain Mira, have shown me another way. A small error, if met with respect and honesty, can become a bridge rather than a barrier. Mira nodded. She had not expected to hear such insight from the Queen. She felt honored and also slightly humbled. Thank you, Your Majesty. I hope we can build more bridges together. The Queen's tail swayed gently. I would like that. In fact, I think we might begin a friendship that goes beyond politics. Mira blinked. A friendship between our species? Yes, Jara replied. Not all leaders seek personal bonds, but I see value in them. Trust grows faster when individuals connect, not just nations. The word surprised Mira. She had been trained to build alliances carefully, but this was beyond negotiation. This was a personal connection, a human connecting with an alien leader through honesty and humor. Queen Jara leaned forward slightly. Captain Mira, may I ask a question? Of course, Your Majesty, Mira said. Why do your people persist even when situations are difficult or embarrassing? Why laugh when you might fail? Mira thought for a moment. Because we understand that failure is part of life. If we do not learn from mistakes, we cannot improve. And laughter. Laughter reminds us that we are alive and that even in chaos, understanding is possible. The Queen considered her words. Interesting. Perhaps that is why humans survive and thrive in ways other species do not. You face challenges with curiosity instead of fear. Mira smiled. I suppose we try to make the best of every situation. Even when machines misbehave. Queen Jara laughed softly, a melodic sound that filled the chamber with warmth. Indeed. Your translator has provided us with more entertainment than any of my court jesters could offer. Perhaps it is a teacher as well as a tool. Mira laughed lightly. I hope it does not take too much credit. It often causes trouble. Jara's eyes twinkled. It seems that trouble can lead to understanding, Captain Mira. I find that amusing and valuable. The Queen stood and walked toward the window. Look at the stars, Captain. Each one holds a story, a civilization, a lesson. Some are peaceful, some are dangerous, some are silent. We have the opportunity to write a story together if we choose wisely. Mira joined her, standing beside the alien queen. The stars stretched infinitely, quiet witnesses to their conversation. I hope our story is one of peace and understanding, Mira said. Jara nodded slowly. So do I. And perhaps laughter will be part of that story. They turned back to the small table. The translator orb floated quietly between them, its blue light steady and calm. It had learned from its mistakes, but perhaps it had also learned from them both, the value of timing, honesty, and humor. Mira opened her folder and presented ideas for cooperation between humans and Zelthar. They discussed shared research, education programs, and cultural exchanges. Every word was translated perfectly this time, and both leaders listened with care. The queen asked questions and Mira answered with honesty, avoiding exaggeration or pretense. For several hours they worked together. Every topic, from science to art, from trade to navigation, was handled with patience and mutual respect. Mira noticed that the queen's demeanor had softened compared to the first days of negotiation. Her golden eyes were still sharp, but her voice was warmer, her gestures slower and deliberate. At one point, Queen Jara laughed again. Mira had explained a human tradition of storytelling, using exaggerated humor to teach lessons. The queen found it delightful. Your people have a sense of playfulness that I had not expected, she said. It is refreshing, Mira smiled. We believe that even serious lessons are easier to learn when there is joy involved. Jara tilted her head. Perhaps my people need to learn this as well. Maybe the universe would be better if laughter was part of every negotiation. They continued talking long into the afternoon. By the end of the session, a mutual understanding had grown between them. It was not just diplomatic agreement, but something deeper, a bond of respect, honesty, and even friendship. When the queen prepared to leave, she turned to Mira. Captain Mira, I am grateful for your patience, your honesty, and your courage. You have taught me that mistakes can be opportunities and humor can be a bridge between worlds. I look forward to our future conversations. Mira bowed respectfully. Thank you, Your Majesty. I am honored. I will do my best to uphold your trust. The queen nodded, her tail curling gently behind her. Trust is not given lightly, Captain. You have earned it. Let us hope that our people can learn the same lessons. As the queen departed, Mira felt a quiet sense of achievement. The private conversation had revealed more than she had hoped. It was not only about trade, patrols, or diplomacy. It was about understanding, friendship, and the power of laughter. The translator orb glowed softly above the table. Mira smiled at it. You see, little friend? Even mistakes can create bridges. The orb hummed quietly, as if acknowledging its role in the unusual bond between human and alien. For the first time, it seemed more like a partner than a machine. Mira looked out the window at the stars, thinking about the future. Perhaps peace was not just agreements on paper. Perhaps it was the small moments of understanding, honesty, and even shared laughter that could connect worlds. She felt a sense of hope, stronger than she had felt in months. The fifth day on the space station, Unity arrived with a calm glow over the polished halls. Captain Mira woke early, feeling a mix of excitement and responsibility. The previous days had been challenging, humorous, and surprisingly meaningful. She had grown to understand the importance of honesty, humor, and patience in diplomacy. Today, however, would mark the final session of negotiations with the Zelthar, and she wanted everything to be perfect. The human delegation assembled. In the conference hall, their expressions serious but hopeful. Engineers performed one last check on the translator orbs, ensuring every system was operating flawlessly. The orb that had caused so much trouble in the past now hovered silently, its soft blue light steady. Mira studied it carefully. She had grown used to its quirks, but she hoped it would behave today. Admiral Harris approached her, carrying a cup of warm beverage. Captain, the Zelthar are arriving in 5 minutes. Remember what we learned? Calm, respect, and a hint of humor if necessary. Mira nodded, taking a deep breath. I will do my best, Admiral. Today we close this chapter and open a new one. When Queen Jara entered the chamber with her guards, the atmosphere changed immediately. Her golden eyes shone with quiet authority, but her expression was calm and inviting. She walked to the head of the table, her tail moving gently behind her, and gave a slight nod to Mira. "Captain Mira," she said, her voice clear through the translator. "I am pleased to see you ready for our final discussion. I trust that your silver companion has learned better manners by now." Mira smiled. "Yes, Your Majesty. It has been trained thoroughly and will not cause further confusion." The Queen tilted her head slightly and allowed a faint smile. "Excellent. Let us begin then." The session started with formal greetings and acknowledgement of previous conversations. Both sides shared reflections on what they had learned from each other. Mira spoke first, emphasizing the lessons humans had learned about patience, respect, and adaptability. The translator conveyed every word perfectly, and the Queen nodded thoughtfully. Jara then addressed the humans. "Captain Mira, your people, have shown me that even when mistakes occur, honesty and good humor can turn potential conflict into understanding. That is a rare quality among leaders. I have watched your delegation carefully, and I am pleased with what I have observed." Mira felt a warmth in her chest. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Your patience and wisdom have taught us much as well. We hope this is only the beginning of a long and lasting friendship." The Queen's eyes glimmered. "It is more than a hope. I believe it can be achieved, but we must establish trust, cooperation, and shared responsibility. Only then can peace between our worlds endure." The conversation moved to concrete agreements. They discussed trade routes, patrol responsibilities, scientific research, and cultural exchanges. Every suggestion was carefully considered and discussed. Mira explained the benefits humans could provide in technology and navigation. Jara highlighted the strengths of the Zelthar Empire, emphasizing efficiency, strategy, and resource management. At one point, Mira presented a human proposal for joint education programs. Your students could learn about Earth history, science, and arts. Our students would learn about Zelthar culture, language, and philosophy. Together we can prepare future generations to continue this peace. The translator conveyed her words perfectly. The Queen's face softened, and she nodded slowly. An excellent proposal. Knowledge is the foundation of understanding. I agree to this program and will recommend it to my council. Next, they discussed shared patrols of border regions. Mira explained human strategies, emphasizing caution and cooperation. Jara listened carefully, then proposed combining human technology with Zelthar experience to ensure safety. Mira agreed, impressed by the Queen's insight. The conversation was calm, professional, and productive. During the discussion, Mira noticed that the translator orb hovered quietly, without any flickers or odd translations. It seemed to have learned from previous mistakes. For the first time, she felt she could trust it completely. After several hours, the session moved toward symbolic gestures. Mira had prepared a gift for Queen Jara. It was a crystal sculpture, shaped like two intertwined stars representing the cooperation and unity between humans and the Zelthar. She placed it carefully on the table. "Your Majesty," Mira said, "this is a symbol of our partnership. May it remind us of the friendship we have built, despite differences and challenges." The Queen studied the sculpture, her golden eyes reflecting the soft light. She reached out, touching it gently. "A beautiful gift, Captain Mira. I will display it in my council chamber as a reminder that even distant worlds can connect through trust, understanding, and laughter." Mira smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. The previous days had been filled with mistakes and humor, but now those experiences had transformed into genuine respect and connection. Then, in a gesture that surprised everyone, Queen Jara extended her hand toward Mira. "Captain Mira, will you join me in making a pledge of friendship between our peoples?" Mira rose and accepted the gesture. "I will, Your Majesty. Humanity pledges friendship, cooperation, and respect to the Zelthar Empire." The translator conveyed her words accurately. The Queen responded, "And the Zelthar Empire pledges the same. Let this bond be remembered, not as a moment of politics alone, but as a beginning of mutual understanding and shared growth." They shook hands, the gesture simple yet powerful. The room seemed to glow with quiet energy as both sides realized the significance of the moment. After the pledge, Queen Jara spoke privately to Mira. Captain, I must confess, your ability to remain composed and kind even when my translator misinterpreted your words impressed me. It shows strength, humility, and courage. These are qualities I respect greatly. Mira bowed slightly. Your Majesty, it was your understanding and sense of humor that allowed us to recover from mistakes. I only tried to follow your example. Jara nodded. Perhaps this is the lesson of our meetings. Errors are inevitable, but how we respond defines our future. Humor, honesty, and courage are more powerful than perfection. The Queen's words resonated with Mira. She realized that diplomacy was not just about rules, agreements, or flawless translation. It was about the connection between individuals, the willingness to forgive small mistakes, and the ability to find joy even in difficult moments. As the session concluded, both delegations rose. Queen Jara turned to Mira once more. Captain, Mira, I have enjoyed these days more than I could have imagined. You have shown me the heart of humanity, and I am grateful. Mira smiled. And I am grateful, Your Majesty. We have learned much from you as well. I hope this is the start of a lasting friendship. The translator orb hovered silently, its blue light glowing softly. It had witnessed the mistakes, the confusion, and the laughter. Now it had served its purpose perfectly. It seemed almost proud of the connection it had helped create. Outside the conference room, the stars sparkled quietly. Humanity and the Zelthar had taken the first steps toward a peaceful future together. They had shared mistakes, laughter, and honest conversation. In those moments, trust had grown, forming a bond that was stronger than any misunderstanding. Captain Mira walked back to her quarters after the meeting, feeling a quiet sense of fulfillment. She knew that the work of peace would continue for years to come. There would be more negotiations, more challenges, and perhaps more humorous translator incidents. Yet she felt confident. If humor, honesty, and courage could turn boiled lettuce into friendship, anything was possible. In her quarters, Mira examined the small translator orb. Its light pulsed gently as if acknowledging her thoughts. She spoke softly. You have caused much chaos, little one, but you have also helped build understanding. The orb responded with a soft hum. Learning from error increases harmony. Friendship probability improved by 92%. Mira laughed quietly. Then we will keep you close, but let us hope you do not cause any more patrol pigs or soup incidents. The orb blinked twice in what seemed like agreement. It floated quietly beside her desk, calm and ready. As the day ended, Captain Mira looked out at the galaxy. The universe seemed vast, full of unknown challenges, but also opportunities for connection and understanding. She thought about Queen Jara, the Zelthar people, and her own delegation. Somehow, despite mistakes and confusion, they had reached something extraordinary. They had begun a friendship that was based on trust, respect, and shared laughter. It was a friendship that could survive the unknown, the distant stars, and even the quirks of a small silver translator device. Mira realized that true diplomacy was not about being perfect. It was about listening, understanding, and sharing a moment of joy. She felt a quiet optimism. If two very different species could find common ground, perhaps the universe held endless possibilities for peace.